In a world of increasing mental health challenges, psychology and faith can both provide tools for healing and wellness. This is the idea behind Journey on My Mind. Each episode, our panel of pastors and therapists sit down together to share their experiences and insights on the modern world's mental health issues: depression, loneliness, aging, addiction, and so much more. Join us now as we explore what it means to thrive at the complex intersection of spirit and psychology.
I would like to have it for my own, memories.
Well, we are back with Journey on My Mind. We are on a bit of a siesta.
Yeah.
Summer got away from us, and we couldn't get our schedules together. But on the bright side, we have a special guest with us this morning that we haven't seen in
Thanks,
hey, Sam Barnhart's back.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
Glad to be back.
Cotter.
I finally figured out my schedule conflicts.
Start keeping a calendar.
Yeah, I did. I'm like, there's this thing that you get on your iPhone, and you can put dates in it.
Oh, it's called a calendar?
Yes. That's what Ange told me.
It's a new thing.
I don't know if I believe her, but
all right.
It's what all the kids today are into.
It's all the kids. All the kids have those phones, those smartphones. They're only as smart as the operator, I've learned.
True. Mine doesn't do much. It's weird.
It's weird. I can't get it to make a call.
Did you at least have fun during your break?
It was a lot of fun.
Sam got to go to camp.
Yeah. You know what? I will say this, because that's a highlight for me of this summer. Our teens went to camp kind of near Knoxville, and it was I'm like church camp, like varsity, like every year of my life, right? Like 50 years now. And really, I've never missed a year. I don't think it wasn't at some camp.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
My parents had to coerce me to go to camp.
I loved it, dude. I loved it, man.
Yeah.
Was this a good one?
It's in the top probably 2 or 3.
Wow.
And it wasn't because I mean, the campground's awesome.
The other 47 just don't.
Yeah, those don't count. No. But it was just this really beautiful. We talk a lot about unity, not uniformity.
Yeah.
And it was just this really beautiful experience of, a lot of times teenagers, they kind of create their groups and click off a little bit. It was none of that. It was just like one beautiful mass of people, and Rob, our youth pastor, put together a great week, and so it was potent. Not because the camp had like Disneyland stuff to do, right? It was a pond and cabins, but it was what happened with the kids and with the leaders. So it was awesome. Yeah,
cool.
That's very
welcome
fun.
back, Sam.
Thanks.
It's
Glad to be
you.
back. Yeah,
it's fun to have somebody to pick on.
Dave, that never happened.
Dave, you having a good summer?
I'm having a great summer. I'll tell you a highlight of my summer too.
Yes.
It was not camp.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Nor would it be my highlight.
I'm probably rare in that category, but
for me, camp is like, I think I'll lose my mind.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to sleep a wink. And
Right. Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And all that's
Your and my opinion of camp are probably the same.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll tell you a highlight, which is, so we're recording in mid-August, but in late July, last day of July, I went to North Carolina.
Yes.
I did my first full-length magic show.
Yes.
An hour and a half.
Wow.
Amazing.
Between 70, 75 people there.
Wow.
Yes.
So good, so fun.
It was only lost 2 assistants.
Yeah, right.
That's amazing.
Only 2. Sawed them right in half.
That's right.
Oh, need another volunteer. Can I get another volunteer?
Huh? Is it on now? Like,
it is on.
It's so fun. Huh? Once that performing gets in your blood.
I wasn't nervous at all.
I love it.
And I don't normally get nervous when I speak, but when I do magic, because it's so like high wire act about like, it's depending on what other people do or say.
Yeah.
But I was just like totally in the zone. So fun.
That's
it was so fun.
Good.
So,
and you have another one coming up,
it's coming up on August 24th.
Yeah, next
24th.
Saturday.
From right now. Right. And then I've got, and that's sold out.
Nice.
Yep. I'm at that one.
Yep. Kevin's coming. And I've got one schedule. We're going to be in Italy for half of September.
I'm sorry,
I know.
Dave.
It's okay.
We'll
be praying.
I'll be all right. I'll be all right.
You'll make it.
But we set one for October.
Yeah.
So if someone hears this wants to go to the October show, it's October 12th at Third Coast Comedy Club.
Third Coast Comedy Club.
It's a great spot.
I know.
Yeah.
Love it.
3cc.
And do you have a highlight?
Oh yeah, I have. we were able to take our kids and grandkids to the lake, up to Tim's Ford Lake for a week, rented a house, and awesome.
Yeah,
it was better.
You were doing that while we were at camp, I think,
was,
right?
Yes.
That was his camp.
That's his camp.
Yes, but so the last day of we had leftover wood.
Yeah.
For the fires, because it was kind of rainy, and
it's been like 180 degrees here.
Yeah,
too.
and so in the morning of the last day, I said to Lori, "I'm going to go out and build a fire." We were watching the grandkids. Parents were, so we had s'mores for breakfast, and they were out there just covered in marshmallow.
Oh, that's the best.
And the parents come out and go, I said,
good morning.
Hello.
And Grandpa's just got marshmallow and chocolate in his beard. Like, I don't know. Talk to Grandma. I have no idea.
And the kids were like, "This is awesome."
Yeah.
It was fun.
And then you got to send them home with Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
Sugar them up, send them home.
Yep. We had a great
awesome.
time, though.
So
it was worthy. It was worthy.
Awesome.
So as we step back into our theme coming up here for today, we've decided to step into this idea of wealth, which is a minefield in and of itself, which I think is a relative statement sometimes, because I think most people in the United States are relatively wealthy, and whether they live paycheck to paycheck or whatever, but they have things that a lot of the population of the world don't have. But so how do you want to step into this, Dave? Do you want to step into it from a psychological idea and then see how the spiritual side of that compares? Do you want to?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about the psychology of wealth, or wealthy people.
Yes,
and then lead that into kind of implications for church and church community and all that. And so I will say, as you all know, as people that have been in church for a long time,
yes.
Yeah.
Churches often, this is like you began by saying it's minefield.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's exactly it, but it's a delicate situation because churches tend to talk about money when it is something that benefits them, and not talk about aspects of money when it's something that doesn't benefit them.
Yeah.
And I'm not directing that here, but I just like that. Yeah. Historically, it's
in
like
general.
talking about tithing and talking about giving,
right,
but then not talking about sort of what implications of being wealthy and generous and that kind of thing. And the reason's obvious most of the time, and that is that churches become like businesses, and they need income to pay the bills and keep the lights on and pay salaries and all that kind of stuff. And you don't want to poke your finger in a lot of givers, a lot of rich people's eyes. And so that's not at all what we're going to do today.
Nope.
But I do think it's probably worth talking about money, because it's a big topic.
Yeah, it is
spiritually.
Sure.
There's a big connection between between the healthy spiritual life and life of faith and money.
So it's oftentimes Jesus contrasts it with God.
Yeah.
So it's not just
he talks about it.
It's talked about all the time in the Bible. So let's do it.
Way more than lots of other topics.
Yeah. More than hell.
That we start drilling down on big time. It's often the case.
Oh yeah.
And I'll start by saying it's really hard to come up with a hard and fast definition of wealth.
Right.
Because some people are like, is it this threshold of money? Is it this much income? Is it this much net worth? And I think it's better, first of all, if you want, in terms of numbers, to think about net worth than it is income. Because
I agree.
If someone's making $500,000 a year and they're spending $500,000 a year,
they're usually spending $600,000 a year.
They're actually worse off ultimately from a net worth standpoint than somebody that's making $70,000 a year and spending $50,000 a year, something like that.
Yep.
So, but the other part is really when you look at what is out there in terms of definition of wealth, it's usually comes down to, can someone be free of financial insecurity in that they don't have to worry about money. And that could be at different levels.
Totally.
So if someone's set where they're like, I've got emergency reserves and I've got enough money to cover the bills and also take care of my kids and all that kind of stuff, in many ways that can be considered wealthy. Even at different levels.
Sure.
Obviously,
that makes sense.
Obviously someone who's got very modest income, we might not call them wealthy, but it's more about what money allows someone to do.
Correct.
So I want to give you start with a story.
Okay.
I like good stories.
I do too. And this is a good one.
Campfire.
And this is cleverly disguised story. As always.
All
because if I share something about a client, I can't say anything that could point back to anybody. Yep. I will say this is not someone that even lives in this state. This is something from before, and I'm changing lots of details.
Okay.
But years
protect
ago,
the innocent.
Protect the innocent. Years ago, I had a man come in who was a physician, who's from another country, he's an immigrant, and he said, my son, who is just started college, had a psychotic break, and it seemed like came out of the blue. He was doing well, functioning well, good in school, and then he just had a psychotic break, was hospitalized. And what I've been told is that this is going to be a chronic condition. And I've also been referred to you, and people say that it would be really good if he could see you, but because of the long-term nature of this, would you consider discounting this? And I said, and normally I have a little more due diligence, but I was like, oh man, the guy's, immigrant family, and he's got a chronic illness situation. And I'm like, sure. And then we negotiate out, and it was like a pretty significant discount.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So I'm working with the kid. He does better. He's doing well, healthy. And then about, he's back in school and
good.
A little ways into it. So he's doing great.
Yeah.
He says, can I ask you a question? And I said, yeah. He goes, did my dad ask you for a discount? And I said, yeah. Why do you ask? He goes, because he asks everyone for a discount. I just want you to know that he has about $6 million in the bank. He has 2 houses and a vacation house and 3 luxury cars, etc.
Yeah.
And so it just got under my skin.
Yeah.
Big time. And so I said, can I talk to your dad about this? Because I felt totally scammed.
Yeah.
I felt cheated.
Yeah.
So I asked the guy to come in. And so I asked him if it was okay if I brought it up. Can I ask you about the discount you asked me for, 8 months ago or a year ago, whatever it was? He goes, sure. And I said, can you tell me why you asked for a discount and what your financial situation is? Can you share that with me? And by the way, this is on me. I should have done all this due diligence before.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
I've been scammed.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted to address it is because it was beginning to interfere with how I felt about working with him. Yeah. And so I needed to clear it. And he said, well, let me tell you this story. When I was growing up in Nepal, I was in the lowest class that you could have. And we were in abject poverty. And every week, some bigger kid would knock me down, stand over me, and take everything I had. And so when I came to the United States as a teenager, in my head, I'm always feeling like someone's ready to take everything I have. And then everything I have is on the verge of
being gone.
Wow. So I thought, wow, it rang true. It still didn't, we should have worked it out in a different way. But what it said to me is the psychology of money and wealth is super important.
It is.
And it's not about how much money you have. It's how you think about it, how you relate to money.
Yes.
Someone could have $40,000 of income and be very content.
Yeah.
And someone could have a net worth of $6 million and live in terror.
Yes, for sure.
Financial terror. So there's a huge piece of psychology about how we think about money, what money does to people, and so on. So to me, that story has always stuck out because in his mind, that was very real. Like he felt like he had to work out a deal for me to see his son, even though he had
plenty of money.
By any standard, plenty of money.
Yeah.
So
fascinating.
Yeah. So that's kind of launching into the psychology of money a little bit.
Go
ahead.
I don't know what your next step is, but part of my encountering with people who, and I don't know, I'll just ask you: does entitlement fit its way into this discussion on any level with this?
Yeah, I'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great
a
great preview.
That's the
audience,
and that's the thing that pushes all my buttons is
the entitlement.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're 100% going to get there.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
All of them.
And I want to hit this fairly, and I will say this is an obvious point, but I'm going to say this. What I'm going to say about wealth and wealthy people does not apply to all wealthy people by any means.
No.
Yeah.
It's just typically true, and things that need to be at least considered.
Right.
And as I look at Jesus's interaction with people and talking about money, is it wasn't that he was so harsh or judgmental as much as he was like it was a caution. Like money is coercive to your soul.
Right.
Like the money puts you at risk for a lot of things.
It does.
Well, I'd always heard, I think my uncle said this years ago, but it's like
Your uncle said a lot of things, by the way.
Well, I had a few of them.
Is this Jack?
Some
Jack?
that we can't
My Uncle Scott. No, this
different guy.
Some we can't
But
say.
he was talking about like, well, God knows his kids, right? He knows the things that that can be our challenges, some things like money or whatever. So
I've talked to several people of means, wealth over the years, and several of them have said that they've chosen not to leave their kids a lot of money in fear of it would ruin them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I find fascinating.
Mm-hmm. I think it's smart.
Yeah.
I do. I think it's smart. So let me give you a couple of we'll hit some of these as bullet points. Then we'll bring all of this back to faith and church community context.
Let's do it.
You've probably heard people say that wealthy people are unhappy. That people might have a lot of money in a nice house, but they're really unhappy.
Yeah.
Typically speaking, that's false.
I was going to say, I don't think that's true.
It's not true.
Yeah.
It's not. There is
money can buy happiness.
In a sense, it can.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of research that says that there is a relationship between what we call subjective well-being, meaning just feeling okay, and happiness and wealth. And it used to be, there was one study that said up to $75,000 of income, and then after that, it didn't matter. Then another study came in and said something like $95,000, and then another one said something like $500,000. The point is, there are different ways of measuring and looking at it.
Moves,
but the point is, as wealth goes up, generally, feeling of well-being and happiness goes up. Generally speaking,
and generally your health is better too, because you can
that's
afford
part of why you're
to go to the doctor.
It's one of the reasons why you're happier.
Right.
You're physically healthier.
Yeah.
You're not having to sweat a lot of stuff. Life comes easier in some ways. Mm-hmm. So absolutely.
Yeah.
And there is, by the way, a study of wealthy people who are unhappy. And it seems like there's, and we'll say about 15% or so of wealthy, unhappy people. Mm-hmm. And what the research says is it doesn't matter how much money they have or don't have. Mm-hmm. They're going to be unhappy. So it's not going to touch those people. And a lot of times what we think of like, well, she has a lot of money, but she's so unhappy. It's because that's how she would be with no matter how much money. Right. That's a personal thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and related to that, there are lots of perks of wealth in terms of privilege.
Yes.
And here's just absolutely fascinating, not going to surprise you.
Okay.
If you take a kid from a wealthy family and a kid from a middle-class family, and they have the same GPA, even go to the same high school, the same SAT or ACT scores, the same extracurricular, if you match them, the wealthy kid gets in way more often to the university. There is something, it's sort of like...
Is it baked into the system?
It's baked in, right?
Okay.
And I'm not saying that there's some kind of conspiracy or underhanded thing. It's just
the way
people know who's connected to who, and they kind of, it's hard to get around it.
Yeah.
That they're, even if it's subconscious.
Yeah.
So that's just one example. So now I'm going to talk briefly about personality traits of wealthy people typically.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about some good and not good stuff.
Okay.
All right. So do you remember we had a conversation about personality traits of that acronym OCEAN, OCEAN?
Yeah. Can you say them again? I remember we repeated them.
I don't know.
wrote them down.
Was our surprise guest here for that?
I was.
Surprise guest, were you
This was
here?
like a while ago, right? Like this was.
This is back when you had your life together.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, before. Yeah,
When you were swimming in the ocean.
that's right.
Yeah.
But I don't remember what it stands for.
Yeah, I'm
You're gonna do it?
Thanks for pitching it to
There
me.
you go.
So it's an acronym. Basically, in psychology, we found that most personality measures ultimately measure these 5 things. That's a simplification, but that's what They measure openness, which is like I'm open to new ideas, new experiences, new thoughts. I'm more mentally flexible.
Yep.
Conscientiousness. I'm responsible. I'm on top of things. I keep a calendar looking at you.
All eyes went this way. Keeping calendars.
My phone is smart.
Yeah.
Extroversion, outgoing, energized by groups of people. Also looking, I don't know.
You too.
Yeah. Agreeableness,
Yeah.
like kind of pleasant, not disagreeable, not seeking conflict. And neuroticism, which is like prone to negative emotion.
Yep.
All right. So those are all high,
That's
low.
right, yeah.
Those are all, you can rate high, low, or in the middle.
Right.
There is a profile for, typically speaking, for wealthy people.
Really?
Yeah.
Typically speaking.
I didn't know that.
And I'm going to, and again,
Yeah.
differences among people, but this is typical. High openness,
Okay.
meaning, hey, that's an interesting idea. Let's think about that. Like,
Yeah.
tend to have that entrepreneurial,
Curious.
venture capital.
Yeah.
Like, let's be open to possibilities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very conscientious, on top of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Know the details. Tend to be a little more extroverted. Low in agreeable. Tend to be more disagreeable. Don't mind conflict.
Yeah.
Right. That
Yeah.
kind of poke their
Makes
finger at your
sense.
eye.
Yeah.
And actually low neuroticism. Like not aren't prone to being that depressed or anxious or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
That's the typical profile. And
Okay.
that's fascinating.
That's
to me.
interesting,
Some of
yeah.
that I would not have guessed. If you said guess, I would have gotten a couple of those wrong.
Me too.
So you were going to
No, I was just going to say something real smart alecky, and I'm just going to let it go.
look at Kevin filtering.
Wow.
I'm being an adult about this.
Kevin is being an adult. Okay. So that's the profile. I'm going to tell you some not good stuff.
Okay.
And this is typical.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is your kind of pitch to me earlier about, are we going to talk about this?
Yeah.
Typically speaking, very wealthy people. And now, even though I said it could be any income level and not having to worry, we're really talking about people that have a lot of means.
Yeah.
Right? People that have a lot of net worth, a lot of income, a lot of disposable income. This is typically what we're looking at. Much higher rates of narcissism, which includes that entitlement. Really fascinating study. There are a bunch of them that say this. Almost every study that measures this finds this to be true. These researchers went to San Francisco after they passed an ordinance that said if a pedestrian's getting ready to go to a crosswalk, you must pause your car.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
right. And then they just coded cars based on like how expensive they were.
Yeah.
And they found that people that drove the more expensive cars
Yeah.
were 4 times more likely to just zoom through that
Yeah, yeah,
crosswalk or to
for
try
sure.
to beat the pedestrian to the
Wow.
cross or all the kind of traffic. More likely to cut people off in traffic, more likely to.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's
so
fascinating.
It's that same as that kind of like rules don't apply to me. I do as I please.
Yeah.
I'm a special person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. And
Get
you can
out of my way.
imagine like
Yeah.
how that would be.
Yeah.
Related to that, much lower rates of or measures of empathy. So they
Sure.
do studies where they'll have people look at pictures or video of people showing emotion on their face and actually literally less able to read accurate emotion.
Yeah.
Like not picking it up. Less empathetic.
Yeah.
Typically often less ethical, right? More likely to break the rules. Lots of studies where people would, if they would do a transaction and they would get the wrong amount of change, they're more likely to keep the change that was wrong or in their favor. All kinds of things like that. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
not great,
No.
Yeah.
right? So what we're saying so far, tend to be happier,
Yeah.
well-being's greater,
Yeah.
but typically more narcissistic, more entitled, less empathy,
A little more selfish.
more selfish. But they also tend to be less impulsive. They don't make as many dumb decisions,
That makes sense, actually, to me.
but they do take good risks. They size things up and they're willing to take a risk.
Calculate.
Sure.
They're more intuitive. They're kind of dialed into things more.
Yeah.
They have more of an internal locus of control, which means that they take responsibility for themselves and their actions. They don't just think I'm a victim of circumstances and
Okay. Right.
outside things control that.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of the other things is the higher rates of prescription drug substance abuse and also really complicated relationships with money in the way that we started. Like that man that I described, that doctor, has a very complicated relationship with money.
Yeah.
He has a lot, but his mental perception of it is that he's always got to kind of guard it, protect it. He can't spend it.
I've heard that called scarcity mindset.
It is scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you kind of blew past this. This was fascinating to me, but there's a higher level of substance abuse with wealth, huh?
Yeah.
Like prescription in general, or
particularly prescription or party drug.
Okay,
but it's because they can afford it, and also because greater access to healthcare.
Yeah,
and get more prescriptions, and people are less likely to question, are you drug seeking when you want this painkiller, and all the things. And consequently, their kids are more likely to have prescription drug addictions because they can go in a medicine cabinet.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense.
And they have parties, big parties at the house, and people go into the bathroom and get their stuff out of it.
Wow. That's why I use Twizzlers. Because no one asks.
Kevin's a Twizzler addict.
Are you a Twizzler addict?
I am.
Have you acknowledged that you're powerless over Twizzlers?
I have. I've apologized.
Your life has become unmanageable.
I've gone through all the steps, but it just keeps haunting me.
It doesn't take.
Because people keep giving them to me.
Yeah. So I just gave a massive word vomit there about all kinds, but I just wanted to give you sort of what's the picture, the psychology of this.
Okay. Is it learned behavior? Is that what you're saying? Or you can be born into it? Yeah.
And there's a whole other discussion about how you get to be wealthy, and that makes a difference. If someone works and saves money and invests well and they become wealthy, a lot of these things that we're talking about, some of them apply, but some of them don't apply. They're less likely to be as narcissistic and entitled and so on. Although some of that there.
Right. Yeah.
People that are born into wealth, or it's generational wealth,
right?
It becomes more problematic. Those kids tend to be less equipped often for adult kind of coping and being autonomous and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Right.
Not always. Again, we're generalizing. We're not saying this is true of all people.
Right.
And we're saying, I mean this honestly, we're saying this out of care and love, not out of like trying to poke our finger in anybody's eye.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and in many ways, when the Bible speaks of wealth and, money, it doesn't, people misquote the verse all the time. Money is the root of all evil.
Right. No, it's the
love of.
The love of money. It's the relationship
it's the
with the money.
Of money.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the actual relationship you have with money. Is more called into question than the amount of money you have.
Yeah.
That's right.
And we all have a relationship with money, and sometimes we don't even realize what it is or where that came from. I mean, it's only been in later adulthood that I've reflected on what were the messages I got about money.
Sure.
Because I didn't feel like I got them, but I absolutely got them.
Yeah.
I just didn't get real great ones.
Right.
Or lessons.
Nor did I.
Yeah.
Yeah. My family was not wealthy, but they were okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they would go out to eat all the time. They'd buy whatever they wanted. They had no savings, and the message I got was, if you have money, you can spend money.
Yeah.
There was no forethought about money.
Yeah.
Right.
And so now I look at like my mom. My father's passed away, but my mom literally is like, she gets her monthly checks, and that's what she lives on. There's nothing else because of that mindset. And I inherited that.
Yeah.
And it took me until
last week
to go, oh wait.
Yeah.
Okay. The people that are good with money, they make this much, they spend this much.
Yeah.
I'm holding my hands even to each other. Then they make this much higher, and they spend slightly more, but they're always now below.
Yeah.
Right. When they're good with money, you're always sort of, it's a mindset. My one of my financial advisors back in the day said, money's behavior. It's not about how much money you have.
No.
And that if the people that are good with money, they think about money differently. They're not necessarily selfish necessarily. They're not necessarily self-focused. They just think about it differently.
Well, I'd say that's one of the lessons I've learned from Kev over the last 10 years, because he's been the guy I've had these conversations with, to help me think about that. And I mean, it's been a total shift in a way of thinking about how to use my money and how that can work for me, or, So.
The church has used it to guilt people.
Yes.
And we've moved away from that.
Yeah.
And I've tried to, talk about it in terms of it's not, and it's the frustrating part about the church sometimes that vilifies something that's not vilified.
Yeah.
And also wants to extract something because they want that from you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes manipulative. It becomes
Absolutely.
a number of things. And you start attaching you're a good Christian if you tithe.
100%.
And I grew up in that environment.
Yeah, me too.
You got to,
100%.
God will only bless you if you tithe.
That's right.
I grew up in a church that was like, we haven't met our giving goal. Let's pass the bucket again.
Yeah,
Right.
keep it going, guys. Keep
and
it
so
going.
I get it.
Play guitar till
Yeah.
somebody fills this bucket.
Yeah.
Sing 37 verses of Just As I Am.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, what does that teach you, right?
Yeah.
It
didn't teach me much of anything good.
well, part of what I had to sort out as I got older was, well, why a tithe, and why would God only bless me if I did that?
Mm-hmm.
I can't afford my rent, but I still am supposed to tithe.
Yes.
Wait a minute, I can't feed my kids. You should still give.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a broken model.
Well, because I was always taught that when you do that, then God's going to take that 10% and somehow magically make it feed your kids that much.
Well, that turns God into a genie.
Exactly.
And
the genie God, yeah.
He's not that.
Right.
And his provision is obvious. His provision to help us is not dependent upon. If it was dependent upon us doing the right thing all the time, we are screwed.
Yeah.
Because we very seldom, we will. As I've gotten older, I think I've gotten better at doing the right thing, making the right choice, whatever. But it's not always the right motive. It's not always the right. But underneath that is this mysterious. I had to unlearn the mysterious idea, because I literally had Sunday school teachers talk about giving, and in ways that was like magical and I vivid memories. The same guy that taught us, Jerusalem is special because USA is in the middle.
Wow.
So
that is a quite the logical leap there.
The United States is right in the middle of Jerusalem. And and as a high school
Bet
kid,
you
you
didn't know
go,
that.
wow, look at that's amazing. Not that Jerusalem was ever spelled in English, but anyway, the same guy saying, if I don't tithe, I'm pretty sure I will be in the poorhouse. I'm pretty sure I will lose everything I have.
Yeah.
Everything. Like
God's going to take it.
Fear mongering.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like,
Yeah.
I had a paper route, and I wasn't giving 10%.
Yeah.
I'm saving for a bike, buddy.
Upgrade. Yeah.
Don't let God take my bike.
That's right.
But that is this. I mean, I think that's a lot of what we've. Very similar. Growing up, like what we've learned about, money in that way.
Yeah.
Through the church anyway.
And that's like my vision for this ultimately is seriously that we have more robust conversations about money and wealth in the church. Because some of it is just the discipleship of when people have money, how can the church community interface with that in a way that is leading to their thriving and well-being, and where it isn't coercive to their sort of relationships and their way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
How we think about having people that are rich and poor in the same space, how we think about the meaning of wealth and all those things. I mean, our money conversations have been so narrow. Not us, this local church, but ecumenically. It's like they've been tithe or don't poke your finger in the wealthy giver's eyes,
or don't say anything.
That's what I mean. Right? Don't bring it up because that's touchy.
Yeah, we don't talk about money,
and it's so important, right? It's something that it's such a part of our lives, and we all have a relationship with it, and we all, people that have church backgrounds struggle with the very things we're talking about. Of, I feel guilty if I'm not tithing, and where does that fit into a life of
and
faith?
What does God think about that? What does God think about, And I mean, as I've gotten older and developed my relationship with money, I honestly don't know if I'm giving 10% away or not. Mm-hmm. I've purposefully decided that I'm not going to make that decision based upon the percentage of my income. I'm going to make
You're going to be generous.
I am going to be generous.
That's right.
And it doesn't always have to be given to the church.
That's
it can be given. I find myself giving to things that I would never have when I was younger because that didn't count.
Yes.
And I remember them saying that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm helping people. I'm trying to
feels like the heart of Jesus.
Right. You give money to the poor people whose houses just got blown up by a tornado.
That's right.
Yeah, see, but that doesn't count. That's not a Christian organization.
Because it wasn't funneled through our books,
right? Yeah.
I'll give you a great one. Ellen was on InterVarsity campus staff for 5 years.
Yeah.
And she had to raise her own support.
Yeah.
Right.
And often the message she got at times from people were that's not part of their tithe because it's not.
Right.
It's a parachurch. It's not a church.
Right.
How crazy is that?
I got that when I was church planning and I was raising money.
How crazy is that?
They could kind of do a little bit, but it was so attached to their community,
church.
which it's fine. I'm just saying it was just a weird way of thinking about it.
Doesn't count.
Yeah,
somehow.
like it doesn't count.
It's like different buckets. It's like that bucket. There's one bucket.
Yeah.
And come on.
Yeah.
But so that's where freedom needs to be part of that. But also I think in the relationship with people with a lot of means have a tendency to, in my experience, be a little more possessive of their money, and not as open maybe as that surprised me that they were open, but I find it fascinating. I find it
they're open to ideas, not necessarily to other things.
But there's a reliance on that money, and this is the thing that even I'm trying not to do with my life is like, I want to have a good enough retirement account so I don't have to worry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have to. And it doesn't matter how big that thing is. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter. Yeah. If I'm deciding that ultimately is what's going to give me peace.
Well, there's Jesus. That's the response.
Right. Exactly.
Of
Jesus goes,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to lose that one.
Yeah.
Because it's so fleeting. It is. And when is enough, right?
Well, if you, and I wish I could reference this specifically, but when financial advisors are asked, what's among the most common things that you hear from wealthy people?
Yeah.
It's never enough.
Right.
And it's not even in this greedy way.
No.
It's in this insecure way.
It's fear.
Right. It's never quite, it's like, well, if I had X amount, then I could rest. And then they get that. And it's like, well, but after tax and capital, okay, well, then it's this. And then it's like, it's never enough.
Never enough.
And so there's rarely a point where,
right.
And that's what money does. It's weird. Like there are people that grow up having no money and they felt much more secure.
Yeah.
And like, we'll take care of it. God will provide. Then they start getting money and they become very focused and obsessed and preoccupied with it.
Yeah.
And so money does a thing to a person.
It does.
That's
It has a, I don't want to say personality, but it has energy.
A power.
It has power.
Yeah.
There's something about it that you've got to have a proper perspective on it. And you can't just make it. It will insidiously get you.
Well, it's
sneaky. It's a sneaky little.
Because as you're talking about wealth,
Bugger.
booger. As you're talking about wealth and like thinking that bar continues to kind of go.
Yeah.
Like I remember like when all of our kids were little and thinking, man, if I could just make this much.
Yeah.
And then when I made that much, it's like, it's not enough then, right?
Yes,
I've seen that.
Yeah.
In my own small like microcosm that
it's
way.
insidious.
Yeah.
It is. It creeps.
Yeah.
It's something about it because it's.
Yeah. I mean, I think even in the course of my married life, we got married. I was on an intern salary. Ellen had an entry-level job, and we were living in Philadelphia, which had among the highest costs of living.
Yeah,
you guys were killing it, huh?
and we were fine.
Right?
And we didn't worry about it.
That's right.
Right.
And then as career progresses and you have more money, then it's like you just find your head going to a different place with it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think too the church has something to offer that.
Yeah.
And it's not just don't worry message.
Yeah.
Let's really get honest about what money does to us, how we think about it, how, and I also think the challenge with the church with wealthy people is like, I think God does bless local communities with people that have means.
Yeah.
And the challenge with that is not to box them out, but also not to give them free passes on, entree just because of their status or wealth.
Right. Yeah.
And it's always like, but yet that's very hard to do because there's always this backdrop in your head when you're interfacing with someone.
Yeah.
I won't say specifics, but I had a recent interaction with a group of people, and I knew one of the people was a billionaire.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
But very down to earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And very easy to talk with, and as great as it was to talk to him and great as it was to talk, it's in the back of your head.
Yeah.
He's a billionaire.
Yeah, not a millionaire.
Like
billionaire.
He's got 1,000 millions. Like at least 1,000 millions.
At least.
Yeah.
Right.
Mind-boggling.
And so in the church, not that we have a lot of billionaires around, but we, people of means, it's hard as a church community and leadership to hit the right balance where those folks are able to express giftedness and be generous and give, but also not sort of be given the message that they have some
control with the money.
Right. Yeah.
Dude, I don't know if I've ever shared this, but the church I was at in Seattle, there was a very wealthy man, made his money in like Boeing and metal and stuff. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah. A lot. I don't think he had a B, but he had a lot of M's, and so he's a sweetheart of a guy, but he wanted to be an elder. That was his goal. That was his goal. And so we had a meeting where he didn't make the eldership, and sat down with the lead pastor, and which I thought this was a pretty funny response, but like, well, man, I was going to give $25,000 to, and he's like, and the pastor was like, man, I thought you could do a lot more than that. I know how much. I know you got a lot more. And so rather than let it be a controlling thing, he was just like, well, that's all you were planning on doing. And it totally took the kind of the fire out of it. And it ended up being fine. But that was like the one real example that I've experienced where somebody was trying to use that in that way, to control church stuff. So,
I've seen it multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Over the years. Yeah. I've had people sit in my office and say, if you don't do this, we're going to stop tithing.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and that's
it's on you, not me.
It's an emotional blackmail, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
And most wealthy people don't do that. And I'm sure there are many wealthy people in our church we don't even know that they're wealthy, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is something that I've been thinking a lot recently about what things make for a psychologically healthy church.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things is that how does the church think about and interface with issues of money and people of means?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In a really healthy, balanced way where we're not poking their finger in anybody's eye, but also not giving, like feeding entitlement and all that. And also how do we talk to everyone, ourselves, about the meaning of money, financial insecurity, all those things.
Well, it's always felt like the elephant in the room in church conversation, right? And in a lot of ways. And so how do you make it not that?
Exactly. So
have healthy conversation.
And I've been manipulated and capitulated a couple times when I was younger.
Yeah.
How could you not though?
I was like,
over time,
this was not a good decision. Mm-hmm. And then you gotta deal with it.
Then you gotta uncrack that egg.
Yeah. And you hurt people in the process. That's the worst part. But what I've also learned over the years is if God wants the church to be there, it'll be there, whether or not rich people help or don't help.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, I love being part of this church community. And one of the things that I've told you, I'm not trying just to praise Journey, but I think it's relevant here is, our backgrounds all come from this church growth. Like if a church is growing, it's healthy and God's blessing.
Right.
And the big mission is for it to get bigger and bigger and grow and all this kind of stuff. And we've seen all the nonsense that brings. And the message here is we'd love for you to be a part of this community if it's right for you.
That's right.
But hold it very loosely.
Yes.
And I think that extends to who's here and who comes and issues of money. And it doesn't have that sort of grasping and clinging and gripping.
Right. It's kind of that open-handed.
Very open-handed. I think that's
come and go.
a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for this. This is we could probably talk about this all day, but because it has such influence on the church, it really does. But thank you for laying that out, and thanks, David. Thanks for joining us, Sam. And may you all have a great week. We're out.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Journey on My Mind. If you enjoyed it, please help us spread the word by leaving us a review and sharing it on your social media. Journey on My Mind is a production of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. Edwin Rivera III is the show's producer with technical assistance from Randy Hansen. Grant Opperman edits the show. If you have a suggestion for a future topic or a question, you can text us at 615-861-9503. And if you would like to talk to someone about spiritual or mental health issues, you can email our care pastor, Sam Barnhart, at sam@journeytn.com.